Congratulations, you have passed, my examiner said almost casually. I looked at him and asked, Are you sure? He looked surprised. You didn't think you would? No, I replied honestly. Well, you should have. You did really well. He smiled, signing my certificate. That day, I was officially granted a license to drive on the UK roads on my sixth attempt. I took a deep breath and smiled to myself. Somewhere else, in another time, in a small town of North India, a 14-year-old quiet girl was being gently persuaded by her mother to try again. Something she had already failed at many times. Riding a bicycle. She was scared. What if she fell again? Like last time. She was late to this. Her peers were already trying motorbikes in the neighborhood. But unable to refuse, she climbed onto the cycle anyway. Her hands shook, her legs trembled. Her mother held the bag. She pushed and talked. The girl replied. They moved slowly. Push, pedal, talk. Push, pedal, reply. Until no talking. The girl looked back. Her mother was far behind, smiling, waving, not holding the cycle anymore. The girl was moving, balancing, riding on her own. Her heart skipped. She looked ahead, lifted her chin, took a breath, and smiled. 2 moments, 2 different worlds, 2 lifetimes apart. Different fears, same trembling courage. So, what connects a terrified child on a bicycle and an adult who didn't believe she could pass a driving test? And how did fear, slowly, quietly, learn to make room for courage? Well, to understand how my courage learned to show up, even when I felt alone, stay with me to listen more about this story. Hi, and welcome to Unmuted Episode 4. I am Roohi, and I share reflections from a life lived quietly but felt deeply. This is a quiet corner of the world where soft lives are taken seriously. If you are new here, you might want to begin with episode 1, where I first shared my struggles with mental health and the beginning of my healing journey. In the episodes that followed, I spoke about discovering selective mutism and how just enough kindness in the world can keep even the quietest of us afloat. With this episode, I am beginning something new. This is the first in a small series that will gently bring season 1 of Unmuted to a close. You see, healing doesn't always begin with answers. Sometimes it begins with a question. What did the struggle give me? Without my consent, but still, somehow, give me. In this series, I explore the unexpected strengths that grew in me alongside selective mutism. Strengths I now see as silver linings. Thin streaks of light around the dark clouds that once shadowed my life. I want to share them with you. Not because the struggle was good, not because I would wish it on anyone, but because I survived. And not just survived, I found ways to live, to grow, and to keep going. Despite severe anxiety, selective mutism, and challenges that affected my mental health. If I could do that, perhaps there is something here for you too. You might wonder why I choose to talk about strengths now, and not only about weakness. The truth is, weakness and strength are not opposites. They exist together. Technically, it is weakness that helps to measure strength. It is often our vulnerability that teaches us how strong we really are. So even as I share strength, I will still touch the places where I was fragile and how I learned slowly to move forward anyway. How I survived, because there is something quietly beautiful about struggle and survival, one that often goes unnoticed. Survival gives birth to success stories, and I'm here to tell you those stories. Today, I want to share one of my favorite ones: how I passed my UK driving test. Because this was never really about driving a car or riding a bicycle. It was about feeling courageous despite of fear. And the story is relevant to all of us. You see, fear is not exclusive. It does not discriminate. Young or old, rich or poor, loud or quiet, fear finds us all at one point or another. So as you listen, I invite you to think about your own fear. Maybe it's an activity like swimming, driving, or speaking in public. Or maybe it's a situation like being in the dark, in a closed space, or in a room where you feel exposed or oppressed. Just notice what comes to mind and hold it gently. As I now describe my relationship with fear. For me, fear was always there. If you have followed my story, you already know that as someone with selective mutism, fear was not occasional. In the beginning, it was constant. Fear of speaking, fear of being seen, fear of being asked a simple question and freezing. Fear lived in my body for a long time, in my tightening chest, in my racing heart, in the silence that arrived before I could stop it. And yet, I dreamed, I tried, and sometimes I succeeded. Each small success made me stronger. It helped me to look for light, even when things felt dark. But although each time success felt like a miracle, it was not. Every win had a reason. The driving success also happened due to a reason. Though full of dreams, my relationship with physical world was broken. My anxiety shadowed my childhood development that included learning to ride a bicycle. The day I finally learned to balance a bike happened because I couldn't refuse my mother, because of all the failed attempts before, or maybe simply because it was the right moment. But the driving test was different. There was no one pushing me, no one cheering from the sidelines, only my fear of failing and my resilience to not quit. Both times I didn't feel confident. I didn't think, I can do this. It felt more like a survival instinct telling me, I have to do it. I have to try. Each time I would come back from a driving class, I would be full of doubts. When I failed the first driving test, I was disappointed. The second time felt worse. By the third and fourth, my nerves were completely in charge. The fifth time, I came home and cried for at least an hour. My children confused, wondering why their mom kept trying and failing. By the sixth attempt, something shifted. I stopped caring about the outcome. I accepted that it might take 10 more tries or 100 maybe. But I decided I wouldn't quit. Somewhere between those failures, those quiet moments of wanting to give up, it would have been hard to explain how I decided that. But I found words that finally described what I actually felt like. They come from a poem by Kiser, and when I read them, it felt like someone had been quietly watching my life. Listen to this. This can be inspiring for you as well. I have to fight my doubts away and be on guard against my fears. The feeble croaking of dismay has been familiar through the years. That voice of dismay, the one that says, "You are not good enough, you'll fail again, why even try?" It had been with me for a long time. My dearest plans keep going wrong, events combine to thwart my will. Yes, things did go wrong again and again with me. But fighting keeps my spirit strong, and I am undefeated still. That was it. That was it. Not confidence, not certainty, not fearlessness. Just a quiet truth that trying felt better than standing still. And that time, my sixth attempt, I passed. Later, as I drove on school runs, I often wondered, was I courageous? I had often been described as weak, timid. My quietness made me vulnerable to assumptions so many times. But my life told a different story. Indeed, it was courage. But it never looked dramatic. It didn't look like confidence or strong appearance. It looked like this: showing up even when my heart was convinced it wasn't possible. So for me, courage was resilience. It was something that was built over time and forged in my silence. An intensity to not give up, as there is a lot that I have missed already. There were other resilient moments too, like walking into rooms where I felt invisible, attending meetings where I didn't speak, applying for jobs again after failing, quietly, privately, and most importantly, waiting patiently for life to make sense. Courage was never the absence of fear. Courage was doing the smallest possible thing despite it. There were hours of practice and many invisible failures. Conversations rehearsed endlessly, never spoken. Days when I came home exhausted from saying almost nothing. Because these failures were invisible, they were easy to dismiss, even by me. But each attempt mattered. Because every time I tried, something inside me refused to disappear. My struggles with selective mutism didn't teach me how to be fearless. It taught me how to keep going while afraid. That is a strength that we all need at some point of our lives. And my wins didn't arrive with applause. They arrived quietly. Each one whispered, "You didn't quit." Here is the truth I carry now. Living with silence forced me to build courage differently. I learned to measure success not by how loud I was, but by how showing up counts, even when no one notices. I learned that bravery can be silent. Sometimes the bravest thing I did was simply staying. And that lesson stayed with me. It's why I'm here now. Why I write, why I speak, slowly, imperfectly, honestly. This was the first silver lining. If fear walks beside you every day, if your courage doesn't look impressive, If your wins feel too small to count, let me tell you something gently. They count. Showing up counts. Trying counts. Surviving counts. You don't need to conquer fear to be courageous. You only need to move with it. Quietly, imperfectly. That is brave. And that is enough. If any part of this resonated, if you have lived with fear and still found ways to keep going, you are welcome to share your story with me. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and found this insightful, please subscribe to my show and leave a review. It really helps others find this. Next time, I will talk about another unexpected strength selective mutism gave me. One that feels almost like a superpower. So be sure to tune in. I now invite you to pause and sit with your fears and your resilience as you listen to this beautiful piece of music called Embrace by Sapphires. Recognize the courage it takes just to show up. Be kind to yourself and to those who are trying. Be soulful.